Jennifer, and thank you, Jennifer, who I also collaborate with. The title of our talk is The Collaborationists, as you can see on stage.
So this title refers to our current touring museum exhibition, but it also refers to the fact that we collaborate, and we'll address this in tonight's talk as well. We've been collaborating for almost 15 years now, and to give you an idea of our practice, of what we do, we're going to show you some different examples. Our practice can be divided into three categories. A social practice, which includes social interventions. Studio practice, we exhibit in galleries and museums. And a public practice, so public commissions, large-scale public commissions. So we'll show you a few images from those three formats to give you a snapshot of our practice. And this will help define or outline the term project artist for you. This is how we refer to ourselves, as project artists. And then we will review our exhibition, The Collaborationists.
I don't know. We always do a lot of stuff. So I guess one of the things was we weren't satisfied just speaking about the collaborationists. So in terms of social practice, possibly we're also trying to share with you some of the aspects of our practice that some people don't see. So we have a history of interventions. This was a piece called Nightclubbing, and it happened during Nuit Blanche. And for this particular commission, we were interested in some of the dynamics on Queen Street West in Toronto, formerly a very vibrant visual arts part of the city, and a part of the city that's rapidly changing. And Page's Bookstore used to be a site for artists to visit, also the literary community, but it had since not been able to afford its rent anymore, so we opened up a nightclub that no one could get into. And there was a lineup that was with some actors, and then people throughout the evening would go and join this lineup, but they could not get in. There was music playing inside and lights flashing. In terms of our studio practice, we also make smaller works and do projects like medium-size sculptures, and we've had a long history of fabrication, form, techniques of building things, and refined kind of strategies in terms of fabrication.
So then on to our public practice. We're increasingly involved in large-scale public commissions. Our role is artist, but also partially architect, landscape architect, and concerned with issues of urban design. So issues of public space, the public realm, quality of life. This is just one example. What you see here is a busy intersection, Victoria Park, on the bottom corner of the slide, and then Dawes Road on the top of the slide, a curving meandering street, which was originally a pathway for farmers into the city of Toronto. And the task was to make this a usable space. So we started with the paths running through the space. We wanted the space to function for the residents of the neighborhood, but we wanted to make it a more comfortable public space for them. So to do this, we created a park with two different faces. On the side of the park that faces Victoria, which is the busy roadway with lots of traffic, we bordered the space with a series of trees, the grove, and then a modernist and colorful take on bucolic split rail fence. On the other side of the park, we made it inviting to pedestrians to sit and hang out, make it a social space by terracing the space, providing seating, and inviting pedestrians to sit.
So some of the things that people in Regina might be reflecting on are the ways in which the public square is used, how that's being changed, and apparently tonight there's also a public outreach session that you might be excited about going to. Some of these ideas and concepts are a long time in making, sort of 40 years of planning in Toronto cultural policy writing, and we find ourselves as moving beyond public sculpture and starting to work on designing of public space. I'm going to skip this. So some selected early works that you might see some pathways into our work that was presented at the Pavilion of the Blind. You may see how some of these ideas have come together. In the case of the multimedia dome from 2001, this is very early in our collaboration. We were thinking of the sculpture, making it appear to be mass-produced, industrially designed commercial object, but with inherent artistic, formal appeal, but then also with a sense of purposelessness. The multimedia dome features a green astroturf surface mounted onto an early generation satellite dish. We covered that surface in the green astroturf and had a corresponding astroturf apron around it and a set of pleather bumpers around it. We were interested in the dynamics of the multimedia aspect, but it actually became a social gathering space when we were exhibiting it in the gallery. People would gather around, take their shoes off, and sit around.
So then another early artwork. It really demonstrated our wish to make electronic art that was also serial and redundant. Also aware of the viewer and create dependencies or counter-dependencies with the viewer. The presence meter is a 9-foot by 5-foot grid of analog panel meters that are affixed to an aluminum frame and then covered with a sheet of glass. The meters, through the use of 4 ultrasonic distance sensors along the bottom, respond to the proximity of the viewer's presence. The resulting proximity reading is represented by the position of the needles on the panel meters. So the closer the viewer is to the presence meter, the more agitated the needles become. So the presence meter simultaneously converts input, the proximity of the viewer, to output in terms of a visual reading. It alludes to painting and abstraction and the grid, of course, and it shares some characteristics of serialism and repetition. As a segue from the hermetic nature of minimalism toward the interactive, the presence meter asks whether technology is an extension of human reach or whether it is a reflection of a fetish, the need for humans to be reflected through their technology.
You can see those little meters going back and forth as you get closer to it. So this piece, which is called In Situ, which we did in 2006 for the Toronto Sculpture Garden, we were making a large format kinetic artwork that also exists as a form of mass media and a place of personal or social interaction and reflection. So you can see there's a park bench that matches the billboard. And we were interested in some of the crossovers, interactions between high art in its exalted state, but also those contradictions of the billboard as a public, popular information sharing system.
So in these early works, you can see some consistent themes. We're interested in interactivity and kinetics, in tension and confrontation, of mass media and the mass-produced, the idea of the viewer and then the viewer as performer, different levels of viewing, and references to modern art historical works and the rewriting of their intent and the revealing of their mythologies.
So now we're going to get to the collaborationists. We're skipping over a bit of the public art projects.
So with the collaborationists, it's really an evolving exhibition. It started out at Art Gallery of Hamilton a year ago. It's since traveled to Robert McLaughlin Gallery in Oshawa, and then Southern Alberta Art Gallery in Lethbridge. And one of the large-scale installations from that exhibition was also featured here at the Dunlop Gallery. We're going to review the exhibition as it was installed at Hamilton because this is the most comprehensive iteration to date. In Hamilton, there was one large room that was connected to a smaller room, and then we had a third room across the hallway.
Well, from a curatorial perspective, the exhibition was setting up contemporary aspects of mass culture alongside mythical aspects of modernity and putting them together in an uncomfortably close proximity. The didactic panel read, the aesthetics of modernism are used as part of a strategy of critique, whether of form and function or of systems of information. Underlying each piece is the artist's examination of contemporary issues related to the control and transmission of knowledge, ranging from the abstraction of information in flip-out to the physical illusion to digital data in black boxes. As the title suggests, the Collaborationist combines the artistic act of collaborating with the narrative insinuations of collaborating with the enemy. A series of confrontations ensues. The artist position works that face and efface each other and connote and quote each other. And then other opinions about the exhibition formed. Murray White has said about the show, for all their play, Marman and Borins are ultimately dealing with transparency and opacity, and the endless tools modernity has given us to mechanize and dehumanize in the service of deflecting truth and accountability. It's true. We have been interested in ideas of surveillance, total information awareness, of access to information, and the negation of information. What was interesting is that the exhibition was, in its origins and in its thinking, was pre-Edward Snowden in terms of that coming into a level of public awareness. So it really went from something that was being considered like conspiracy theory to being quite mainstream. So you talked about it.
So now we're going to get into some of the actual installations and pieces in the show. The show consists of sculpture, painting, interactive and kinetic work, large-scale installations. So this is really, as artists, what we were collaborating on.
Well, we all know Pavilion of the Blind. I hope that you're not coming to the lecture without seeing Pavilion of the Blind. That has been showing upstairs in the Dunlop. Now, but one thing that was different in this case is that, so it showed in relation to other works in a group context, but in our exhibition, we were showing works that quoted it, or possibly that the pavilion itself spawned these works, and creating kind of a interaction between the execution of the paintings and the presentation of them, alluding to traditions such as constructivism and echoing compositions of the larger sculptural form, allowing for a somewhat paradoxical commentary on artistic practice and the history and nature of abstraction. Did the structure inspire the paintings, or vice versa? The paintings both complement and exist in tension with the Pavilion of the Blind. Simultaneously, they are vignettes, single frames of an animation, studies of light and color, while symbolizing both the blueprint for and the record of the sculpture. So they hearken to an idea of space in general, rationalized and saved by modernity. This is the double version of Pavilion of the Blind, which showed at Robert McLaughlin Gallery in Oshawa in 2013. And you can see how some of the paintings are situated around it. And then we don't have that.
So then, facing Pavilion of the Blind at Hamilton was a piece called Flip Out. It's a transformation of utilitarian mechanisms from the industrial world into the formal and aesthetic realm of the visual arts. So the large format kinetic relief sculpture transposes the once ubiquitous split flap display into a geometric and color-based artwork that is in constant motion. We're going to show you a video clip that just shows some of the possibilities. The piece is large in scale. It's approximately 8 feet wide by 5 feet high, with over 200 split flap display units. Each split flap display features 40 different colors. And we then worked very closely with the programmer so that the board is in constant evolution, changing from random patterns to monochromes, and then various patterns. So sometimes referencing art historical styles, and sometimes redacted patterns.
And then there were accompanying paintings. So we had these paintings that we've been doing for a while called frags, and we were interested in a way into abstraction that relates somehow to digital culture, our current digital culture, and looking at information as quantifications rather than as something else. So quantifications of data, how could we present that? So the idea of fragmented hard drives, spaces on hard drives, bits, pixels, and the spaces in between. But in this case, also the paintings relate to the sculpture flip out and have been influenced by them and vice versa. With input-output, this is quite different, and the show takes kind of a turn toward some sort of hermeticism, a black box type of culture, so to speak, and yet carries some of those formal influences from the other pieces. So we had constructed this piece. It's about 4 feet high, metal, matte black, and it expels this spool of paper and into this gridded chamber. So you have this contrast in terms of the aesthetic, and we had programmed it to go in a cycle, possibly it can be interactive, it can expel more or less. But what we were really interested in doing was having it go then in reverse and bring that information back up inside. And we thought that was of particular interest. And then we did a series of paintings. And so once again, you get this echoing effect and this idea of the works in contrast to each other. On the one hand, this larger piece, if you look at its context, an oil stick on black acrylic painted surface, but oil sticks are very difficult to use and sort of messy, in this case as a plotting chart. And then rather humorous to us, what if the order in which the input-output was producing its paper, what if that somehow got mixed up or was not as orderly? And then on to Google, a kinetic interactive sculpture comprised of a huge set of googly eyes that survey the gallery space. They seem friendly, even humorous. They follow the viewer back and forth. We're also taking a friendly image of the search engine Google, in its cartoonish way in which it presents itself, and discussing the complicity that we hand over and the way in which we hand over all of our information about ourselves every day.
So then, in the same room, juxtaposed to Google, is a poster book format sculpture titled Flip Through that viewers could flip through the pages. The first page, as you can see in the slide, is a black rectangle. And then as you flip through, the rectangle begins to fade and then disappear. So what we did is we took a black void and we photocopied it. And then we copied the copy until the image disappeared. And then we photographed our photocopies and made digital prints. All of this to make the black void disappear. It's different from other process-based artworks because there's a narrative involved. The image is disappearing. We're erasing the image through copying. So it becomes an exploration in the degradation of materials. But also suggests the erasing of a cover-up because the black square is covering up. It refers to how information that's vital to us is being manipulated, redacted, and erased. It's also significant the way it's set up in the exhibition. it is positioned opposite Google. So it's an opportunity for the viewer to be positioned so that their back is towards Google. Google is about total information awareness, while on the other hand, flip through is the erasing of a cover-up. The act of flipping through pages and stages and the progression of an unknown narrative. So one piece, Google, supposedly sees all, and the other piece, flip through, symbolically erases what we cannot see.
So on the other side of the exhibition, across the hallway in a separate room, it's as if there's another bookend. So we built a total installation. This area is normally a gallery space that has a wide wooden floor, stained. They usually have sort of like wineskin painted walls, and it's very theatrical. And in this case, we sought to completely transform the space. So adding walls, adding the office doors, and it was really pretty amazing because people, even though they're used to the space, it's as if the gap part of the museum had disappeared. So at the entrance of the room, reel-to-reel sets the tone of the space. 2 oversized open tape reels hang on the wall. They're really quite large. Where are they? They're there. And there are headphones positioned nearby that allow visitors to listen to the 18.5-minute gap in one of the erased recordings that created the Watergate scandal. A gap in the June 20th, 1972 Oval Office recordings while Richard Nixon was president of the US. The erasing of the tapes reveal but hide Nixon's criminal conduct with regard to the stealing of information from the Democratic Party via wiretap, amongst other crimes. The viewer listens to the sound of the erased tape. So we activate this historic event through reel-to-reel as a metaphor. It's an attempt to find a way to express abstraction through negation, empty space, a void. The 18.5-minute gap symbolizes a starting point that takes us to the post-9/11 Bush era. It was interesting to us that this quaint ability to erase data and thereby history is now in tension with the persistence of data in the digital age. The inaccessibility of this information is key, and it's of interest to us, and correlates to our work Shredded Square and Shredded Rectangle, which also contain data through redacted and redacted in shredded paper form, and that's encased in acrylic clear boxes. Maybe for another view, you can see the scale. And that all of this shredded material is then placed within these clear plexiglass containers.
So then we come to the final installation in the exhibition, called Black Boxes. What you see is a room within a room. There are 6 tall black rectangular boxes behind metal mesh fencing, and they hum under fluorescent lights. They resemble large computer hubs, and the installation poses questions about the unknown data within those boxes. The inaccessibility of this information is key, and correlates to the shredded rectangle and square pieces that are adjacent to this room within a room. So we're going to show you a video clip. So Black Boxes is a manifestation of inaccessible knowledge, knowledge both virtual and physical, and it emphasizes the themes of power and control that permeate the exhibition, and maybe make the viewer rethink the meaning behind some of the installations that they encounter at the beginning of the installation, such as Pavilion of the Blind and Input-Output. And maybe these black boxes are in fact controlling other works in the show, or questions about information and control of information, leaving the viewer with somewhat unsettled feeling at the end of the exhibition.
So that takes us to the end of the Collaborationist exhibition, and then because we started the presentation just with some contextualization and some earlier works, we'll just zip through a few other images. So in this case, this piece, called Webbing Sculpture, and we were interested in riffing on this Miami context that we were showing in, and kind of referring to the advent of architecturally influenced modernist furniture, how that informed things like lawn chairs, but a lawn chair gone wrong, and then in this case, Sandy Moore. And here, this piece being these boat cushion paintings, but they're actually all made by hand, and they're not really boat conditions, but painting the surface, adding the piping, as you can see in the detail shots. A sculpture called Snake, as if we had taken as if we had taken components of paintings, abstract paintings, but just sort of hung them on a hook, casually, so to speak.
So then we're going to just quickly review an exhibition from 2009 called Project for a New American Century that took place at Art Gallery of York University.
What we were interested in doing here, so we have a video, there's a surveillance video, and it shows us coming into the gallery space, but it's actually a tape loop, and it never shows us leaving. The traditional entrance to the gallery would be a large open space, but in this sense, just to the, the left of where those lights are is the actual entrance, and this colossal brutalist structure, the viewer encounters. And then turning that structure, a large, kind of like separating wall, and then seeing the structure moving back. So the viewer, forcing the viewer back into the space. As you can see where that dividing wall is, where those doors are, that's about where a viewer would be standing. But then the interesting, having these three windows on the top here, looking down, but then being attracted to this window. That's not a painting, this multicolored rectangle there. It's actually a window. It's a window into a chamber. These are the walls. And the viewer can only see themselves through, or the viewer can only see the totality of the space through a parabolic mirror. And in that parabolic mirror, reflected is the interior of some kind of a cell. And in that cell are, possibly we're imagining that there's somebody inside there, but nobody's in there. But that cognitive map and memory that is formed is then translated into the second gallery space. And all of these pieces become offshoot paintings. So if you can see on the left there, that painting was that wall turned into an abstract painting. This motif here on the back wall turns into another painting. The topography of the sculpture that's on the ground, that's in the third painting. And then the watchtower structure in the fourth painting. And then, because this was at York University, and we took a component of University of Toronto, which is actually the Robarts Library, is designed sort of like really like a panopticon, and has a lookout tower on its south side, and then an interior courtyard system of concentric layers in which anybody who is studying can be watched by anybody who is in the stacks, the bookshelves. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. Thanks.